Hi, it's Dennis Fassuliotis.
And this is Gary Leland, and you're listening to episode 129 of the Crypto Cousins podcast.
Feed your interest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies by joining Hall of Fame podcaster Gary Leland on the Crypto Cousins podcast. And remember, we are all cousins in the world of crypto.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the show, everyone. Dennis, welcome to the show, episode 129 here.
All right, that's great. Sounds. I've never been 129.
Well, it's a first for everyone, right? Well, you may make it to 129 if you're lucky. So I don't know if I'll make it that long. You know, we're both boomers here. So I do the Bitcoin boomer stuff, and you're the blockchain boomer, I guess, right?
Yeah, we're about halfway there.
Yeah, we're about halfway there. Dennis, we've known each other a long, long time. I mean, growing up on James Island in South Carolina. For those who don't know, Dennis and I both grew up on a little island. Well, it was little then. But now it's pretty populated. It's surprised that thing doesn't sink. So much stuff on it there. But your mother, I think, was like my fourth grade teacher. I mean,
probably, yeah. I mean, our elementary school, I'm sure.
Yeah. I remember we used to call her Mrs. Fass instead of Fassuliotis. I guess she thought that'd be too hard for fourth graders to remember.
Well, I always told her she should have run for the legislature on James Island. She would have been elected because she educated half the population out there.
She probably would have. I would have voted for her. She probably would have. Matter of fact, I remember I ran into her, when I was like 24 or 25 somewhere on the island. I don't know. I just remember running into her, and she still knew who I was. Yeah. And so I thought that was pretty good there. But yeah, she was a good teacher.
I remember her favorite students in the...
Are you there still? Shit. Are you there? Are you there? Dennis?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had a phone call come in.
Yep.
And it synced to my computer. So let's start with, and so it kind of blew us up there. So I'm going to start with, say she always remembered her favorite teachers. Let's start there.
Well, yeah. Well, as I was saying, she always remembered her favorite students and the ones that caused her the most trouble.
Well,
you might have been.
Could have been either one of those, Dennis. I could have been either one of those. I think at that age, though, I was still a pretty good kid. I didn't get in too much trouble. It was later in high school. In high school, I started realizing I didn't need to listen to authority anymore. And then I think all my teachers were probably kind of like, that Gary used to be such a good boy. Well, Dennis, we could talk forever, probably about old memories, but you and I reconnected a couple years ago at the Super Conference in Texas. And whether that was a bad conference or a good conference, it was different things for both people and both for some people.
It was great.
We enjoyed meeting and talking and reinitiating an old friendship. And that's when we both found out that we were both into the world of crypto somehow or another. You're a little more into blockchain than I am, but you're doing an event trying to get Charleston, South Carolina up to speed, or maybe even trying to make it a leader in this new tech. So first thing I wanted to talk about was your movement with your new conference, because as you know, I do a conference, so I kind of understand what you're going through there.
Sure.
You're doing the South Carolina Blockchain Week. So you're taking on even a little more than I am. I'm just going for a conference. You're going for a whole damn week, Dennis.
We're working on it. I'll tell you, it's been this has been one of the biggest challenges I've dealt with. But let me just backtrack a quick second. I want to just let you know that I've pretty much followed your lead into crypto. I think it was October or August of 2017 when you decided to make that move, and we kind of spent a lot of time early in the internet days experimenting, and I took one path, you took another, and we kind of reconvened into the crypto world. So, fast forward, 2.5 years later, all I did was buy a little Bitcoin, and today I'm running the state initiative in South Carolina to advocate for favorable regulatory climate, for cryptocurrency developments and ICOs in the state, and the introduction of utility tokens, basically tokenizing the economy. So it's really exciting times. I mean, at this point in life, when you're potentially looking at retirement or semi-retirement, that this has just created opportunities that I just couldn't imagine 2 years ago.
Right, right. Well, that's what new technology does. Whenever it comes along, it creates new opportunities.
Absolutely right.
And
Absolutely.
even though we have different ways of, maybe we probably both started in about the same arena, but we've definitely forked as the directions we've gone.
Right.
So we're covering different aspects, but I think a lot of what you're trying to accomplish here, and so that's why I brought you on the show. I think you're first just strictly blockchain person I've had on this show since I kind of converted to a maximalist, but I like what you're trying to do.
Well, I understand the maximalist side of things as well. I mean, I really try to, maintain a comprehensive view of what's going on in this industry, and and it really is an industry.
Right.
It's not just and forgive me, but I see so many opportunities that we have just transformative change in front of us. I mean, recently I saw a presentation with Chris Nook at the Government Blockchain Association meeting. He brought up, the fact that we're going to proceed the next 20 years will be more technological change than we've seen in the last 300 years. That's significant.
Well, I think that's just a given. No matter whether blockchain would have come along or not. Now that we have computers.
Could you imagine being at a party at Versailles and and passing out and waking up with a hangover the next day and being in 2020?
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
We don't even have to go that far. Let's just think back when we were kids, Dennis. I remember we saw in classroom, we watched. We used to watch videos, not videos, even films. They'd bring in films and show us, and we watched the film. I remember we watched the film one time from like General Electric or something, and it showed a guy with a little portable TV on his desk, which was so modern at the time. It was like a full-size TV, but maybe 12 inches big, and he was talking to someone on the TV and, across the country. And that was like some big deal that he had a TV, he could talk to someone. And we were like, ooh, and now we're carrying that in our pocket. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
wear it on your wristwatch.
Yeah, correct, on your wristwatch.
Really,
yeah.
I mean, we get back to Dick Tracy, and I mean, how cool was that?
So now just take that and do the multiplier from where we are now. That little TV on that guy's desk, and he was talking to someone in a conference across the country, on a not even a flat screen TV. It was like in-depth tube TV. You know, so if you imagine that much growth from then to now, oh my gosh! I mean, by the time you and I are in the old folks' homes, which could be next year, even though, but by the time we're in old folks' home, no telling what this is going to be. Hey, before we go any further, how about give everybody a short rundown on who is Dennis, real quick?
Yeah, sure. We were talking about hard forks, and I guess you could say I took my first hard fork. Years ago. I mean, my background was really real estate and construction, but through several recessions, tech always bailed me out. And whether it was the demystifying of four wires, that was the AT&T breakup, or the advent of the internet and email and fax broadcasting, or now cryptocurrencies. That's pretty much been my area of kind of back and forth. I mean, this last recession was particularly bad. I mean, obviously the housing crisis was a 7-year downturn in our economy. I managed to muscle through it with a portfolio of homes that I'd purchased over the years and had maintained, and the rental market in Charleston suddenly came back with a vengeance. I mean, we're one of the top tech communities in the country now, and it started really about 20 years ago, and then we went through the housing crisis, and it came back out with a vengeance, and suddenly I was sort of semi-retired, and that was about the third time I'd heard about Bitcoin also, and looking for a way to hedge against another economic downturn is really what attracted me, to the tokenomics of Bitcoin and really how it's set up. And so I felt like it's better to have a little exposure in Bitcoin than none.
Right.
So I made that first step, and that's what really changed the world.
Because now I'm known among my peer group, I guess, of baby boomers. When I go, I'm that weird guy that's always talking about Bitcoin, and
Right.
they're always like, "How's that Bitcoin doing? And should I get some?" And I'm always just kind of like, you might want to buy one or two. You don't need to jump all in there like I did and go crazy, but
Right.
you might just want to like have a little just in case I'm right, guy. If
Yeah.
I'm wrong, you're not going to lose that much, but if I'm right, you're going to lose a ton if you're not in.
Well, it really is surprising how little education people or self education, a lot of people are not initiating, given the amount of information that's out there. I mean, just
There
simply.
is a ton of information out there about this too. It's
Oh,
not like this
I
is
mean,
hidden thing. I mean, it's like if you want to start a show or get into this field, it's the most populated and crowded field I've ever seen.
yeah, but if you don't look for it, you don't see it. Except perhaps you see obviously the classic line: if it bleeds, it leads in the news media.
Mhm.
You'll see the bad press about the hacks.
Yeah, if there's a hack, we'll definitely see that.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see the reminders about Mount Gox and all the dark web stuff. But the true story. I mean, you really have to dig a little for, and that's part of the. I think that's part of the challenge of this is that you have to be willing to to just do a little bit of a deep dive and understand. You don't have to necessarily get into all the nuances, but a simple addition of blockchain or Bitcoin after pretty much any phase, any Google search will yield you more results than you ever anticipated would be out there.
And even with Google taking down stuff all the time, it's still going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, but if you don't look for it, you don't see it. It's
Correct.
just really something. So it's
I agree 100%. But once
yeah,
you once you go down the rabbit hole, though, you kind of like realize.
Yeah, depends on how far you want to go. That's really what it comes down to. So,
yeah.
But,
so let's talk about South Carolina Blockchain Week because I want to know what's going on. What's going on with South Carolina Blockchain Week? That's coming up. What's the date on that? And give us like the quick elevator pitch on South Carolina Blockchain Week.
Sure. Well, South Carolina Blockchain Week really is the next step in the development of our economic initiative for South Carolina to promote the industry. And we're bringing together industry, private sector, public sector folks, for the first time in the state, and really demonstrating that there's an industry out here, and one that will support an economic development program, as well as introduce startups and basically transformative technologies that are based around emerging technologies, blockchain, AI. I mean, you name it, machine to machine learning. It's all part of the mix. I mean, we got our start as South Carolina's blockchain initiative. We're having some discussions about moving into a more comprehensive emerging technology initiative because but blockchain is at its heart. Bitcoin is obviously the quintessential standard of blockchain that most people are familiar with. The biggest obstacle sometimes we have when we get an initial conversation going is getting off of the Bitcoin conversation and getting on to blockchain as a technology. So the purpose of the conference really is to bring industry together to say this is what's going on in the world right now. We're going from a lab and into the real world. And with South Carolina, if you really think about South Carolina as one big supply chain, with the port and the inland ports and the manufacturing story, the transition of the economy from a textile agricultural economy to the envy of the world. I mean, we've attracted aircraft and automobile manufacturing to South Carolina. That's huge. I mean, that's what everybody wants, and we have it. So, there were defining moments in the in the economic, transition. I mean, obviously the closure of the Navy base, base realignment years ago, was really the first big step. When we got off the military dole, basically as a port, as a Navy base. But the move now is, there's research going on in Boeing and Volvo and BMW, all looking at how to use blockchain for industrial purposes. Okay, what we've done is essentially taken the the whole idea of industry development and integrating the technology into our message as a way of saying, okay, you know, there's money here. Why not go after these companies while they're young, rather than having to give away huge tax credits to bring them in later on? So that's part of what we're trying to accomplish.
So how's that going? I mean, do you feel
Well,
like you're making headway, or do you feel like you're butting up
we've
against
been
the
at
wall?
it a year. I mean, this has been a 1-year program so far. Excuse me for getting out of frame there. This has been a 1-year program so far. So, it's, obviously in a year we've introduced legislation. We kind of backed into this a little bit, and that, following the regulatory, path of crypto in the U.S. with, if you recall, when Bitcoin hit 20,000, the cryptocurrency market it was just close to $1 trillion. Okay,
Right.
800 billion. Okay, so that got a lot of people's attention.
Well, we're halfway there. We're halfway there again. I mean, we're at 9,000, so we're almost halfway to the all-time high.
Yeah, but about a third of the volume. Okay, so we're right around 288 billion in volume. And that's still, obviously, in my opinion, a function of, how ubiquitous this, technology is moving into developing new applications. I mean, obviously, in 2018, we saw the white paper boom of crypto and vaporware. And if you had a great idea, you could raise yourself a few $1 million, and
real quick. Any idea.
Multiple millions.
Even if it wasn't even a good idea.
Yeah, and we're still suffering from the fallout of that, obviously. I mean, just the path to regulation has taken so long that the U.S. has actually fallen behind Asia and Europe in the development process, and from both a policy standpoint as well as from an integration standpoint. I mean, we're still bogged down at the federal level. So what I saw in that time frame was that a state like Wyoming became the center of the universe for the regulatory argument. And they recognized the opportunity to develop this industry. They're a little leaner and meaner out there. They're only 500,000 people versus 5.5 million, in South Carolina, and they don't have the industrial base that we do. So they were looking for an opportunity. Through some of the folks, in the industry that are well known, Caitlin Long, Tyler Lindstrom now, the majority whip, they've crafted 13 bills, to regulate the industry. And as I followed that, this time last year, as they passed their 13th bill, I was able to pull those together and get them to our legislators, and we were able to digest them down into the first omnibus blockchain bill in the country, and just simply meaning that it's integrated into existing code, and the bill actually has a separate chapter that's been created for the virtual currency segment of the statute. So,
let me ask you a question here. So, did you know, like you live near Charleston, and Columbia is the capital where people you're dealing with are? Did you know a lot of people there in the legislature? Or you just been like up there just cold calling, hammering, meeting people, telling them your agenda? How's this? How?
Yeah, pretty much good old sales 101. I mean, cold calling, meeting people. I mean, it's been, this has been a grassroots movement.
So
if you
you're the
study,
crazy guy in the hallways at the at the Capitol building?
I've become the Bitcoin guy in Columbia. Okay, I mean, after a year of this, this session started, and I started meeting the folks that I'd met last year, I was being introduced to, he's the Bitcoin guy.
Oh,
So
funny.
I said, I'll take that.
Yeah,
no
you'll
problem.
take that. It could be a lot worse things to be called for
So
sure.
I got my Palmetto pin, that the South Carolina Commerce gives out. That lapel pins are very, very, are everywhere in Columbia. Okay, designating who you are, what you represent. So I've got South Carolina Commerce's Palmetto pin, which is a great pin. They get rid of them immediately as soon as they get them. But I've got the Bitcoin pin right next to it. So yeah. So and we've actually designed a lapel pin for our conference that I'll save one for you.
Oh, do that. I'll add that to my wall of pins here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice to have. So that's interesting. So you've actually, I think I kind of knew that in the back of my head, but I didn't realize that you just said, heck, I'm going up there and I'm just knocking on doors, basically in the Capitol. I thought you had some friends, or over the years you'd made connections with people who were in the South Carolina legislature or something, and you were just saying, "Hey, Joe, help me out here." And Joe was talking to David, and David was talking to Susie, and but you're doing more grassroots, like, "Hey, here's what we got."
That's pretty much what happened. The genesis of Palmetto Chain really began at the University of South Carolina, Darla Moore, right after the Super Blockchain Conference. Dirk Brown, who's the director of faculty at Darla Moore, had a student, a PhD candidate, Rob Biglione, who some of your folks may know, is one of the founding members of Horizon, formerly Zencash, so Dirk organized a one-day event, which featured Rob and a couple of one of the folks from Consensus and another fellow that just talked about blockchain in general. And I happened to see that ad, and I was looking for somebody to talk to, so I could only talk to you so often.
I understand. I'm right now. I was on the phone with someone yesterday about a monthly luncheon I'm trying to get going on here in Fort Worth. I'm going, it's just, I decided I wanted to go to an event with some people. So I said, I guess I'm going to have to start one, because I can't find one I really like that much.
It's funny. I mean, people don't realize that, a lot of it is just your own personal curiosity. Not to digress into entrepreneurism or anything, but so much of it is just your own personal curiosity and finding something that you're interested in, and recognizing that that just because you're interested in it doesn't mean nobody else is.
Right. It's just finding those other people.
It's just the opposite.
Those other people are hard to find, though, sometimes.
Yeah. So,
getting back to the conference is the 13th and 14th.
That's
so that's coming up.
Right. I'm sorry.
So that's coming up. I mean,
we've been really going back and forth on this, obviously, with all this virus scare going on.
Yes, because yesterday South by Southwest announced they shut down Bitcoin 2020 in San Francisco. They had like 3,000 people coming to that end of the month. They shut down, and they're going to postpone theirs to the third quarter. I'm talking with them, kind of like going, let's make sure your third quarter isn't close to my third quarter event.
Right.
And while we're talking about that, let me bring that up. Hey, if you're not familiar, check out BITBLOCKBOOM. BITBLOCKBOOM is a conference I do every year. This will be our third year in Dallas, Texas. And BITBLOCKBOOM is really just about Bitcoin, not about anything else, not altcoins, not anything but Bitcoin. This will be our third conference in August 2020. And if you're not familiar with BITBLOCKBOOM, go to bitblockboom.com. Check out the conference, see our great lineup. And if you use the code word COUSINS, COUSINS, when purchasing your tickets, you'll save 30% off the price of a ticket. So check it out today. You're going to love it at bitblockboom.com. Got to get that plug in there, Dennis. You know how that works.
Sure. Well, let me plug it also. I mean, I was there, for your second conference last year, and it was really a great conference. I got a lot out of it. Met some great folks that I met at other conferences as well. So Tone Vase, was at your conference.
Yeah.
Ran into him in Athens and Greece. I mean, it was great to just have that connection from that
Oh
standpoint.
yeah, that's true because he was. I was just at his event in Vegas, and I met a lot of people there now,
Right.
that are doing things with BitBlockBoom because
Right.
I've met them out there. So yeah, it's amazing how the world works on that thing when you go to
It's a
things with
small,
like-minded people. You
yeah,
know,
it's a small world. I mean, when you're dealing with the right folks in this industry, you know it.
but
It's
no, let's
the bad actors. The bad actors are gone. A lot of the bad actors are gone. Very
well,
few.
there's going to be always be events that may be bad actor events, but that's in any genre. That's not a crypto or Bitcoin thing. That can happen in anything.
Yeah.
So that's not neither here nor there. But
No, exactly.
your event, like I said, starts on the 13th at 4:30 p.m. That's basically registration. You have a hands-on workshop. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
that means. What's a hands-on workshop?
Well, actually, no, the workshop Friday is being conducted by Sophia Lopez, the founder of Kaleido, one of the consensus projects, and she's going to demonstrate and show some of our more technical attendees how to use a blockchain as part of your middleware and your existing data
Okay.
stack. Yeah,
Now,
so that's really that's for the more tech oriented folks, and then
well, what
we'll
looks really good to me is the networking and happy hour. I mean, it's
right,
after that. At
right,
6 to eight
right.
thirty.
Well,
Looks like that ends a little early to me, though. 8:30 happy
well,
hour.
it is St. Patrick's Day weekend. It is Charleston, so we want to give everybody an opportunity to get out and enjoy the city a little bit. So, so we are planning I'm sure there'll be some activity after that.
Well, you have a
Uh,
big lineup though the next day. I mean, you have a huge lineup here. Everybody from senators to mayors to, I mean, gosh, there's a big lineup here the next day. You're doing two.
it's a big event. I mean, really, we have had, in response to, this virus scare, we have scaled it back, and we're actually, if you get a ticket for this event, you'll also have a ticket for a follow-on event in October. Okay, we
Okay.
are actually, we are planning to, to split this up into the two tracks. I mean, we just made the decision, Thursday, and haven't actually been able to publish it yet, but we are splitting this. The tracks so that the main track will be presented, as part of this event, and then the second track will be the beginning of the second event, at a date in October that we haven't yet actually picked. So I think October is going to be an awfully busy month for crypto or conventions in general. Given all the cancellations that have occurred.
Yeah.
Uh,
A lot of
so
things are going to be rescheduling. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. But what it offers us an opportunity to do is our legislation. You know, it's. I mean, the biggest obstacle we have right now is in our legislation is just education. So I didn't want to forego this opportunity, given that we did have legislative members attending. I mean, very high level folks along on both sides. So we wanted to continue the education process and then carry it into October at that point. So it's really but if you look at the lineup, I mean, Dale Christie, he's the second in command at COO. He's the chairman of the I forgot the exact. It's the group that sets standards for supply chain standards in this country. He's coming in to tell us about the the open source project that they're working on with UPS and DHL. In Dale's words, block where authenticity is important, blockchain will be transformative. So the whole supply chain process, the great disruptor FedEx has taken the position they're going to disrupt themselves with a new business concept that is bigger than FedEx, and they take the position that he's coined the term co-opetition, whereas competitors are all banding together to create the next big supply chain logistics platform. So that's exciting. The manufacturing side is represented by both. Uh, 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 um, oh gosh, you're gonna have to edit this part out. um, Simba Chain, excuse me, both Simba Chain and Veritex. I'm hoping to bring Veritex in, by audio, by video. Unfortunately, Jim Ragnar is so busy as one of the hottest startups at Techstars Air Force in Boston right now. They can't break away. They have a manufacturing process that utilizes blockchain to guarantee the authenticity of aeronautical aircraft parts. And so they digitize the drawings. They send them through. They transmit the information and guarantee its authenticity using a blockchain. And with the design specs and the material specs and all the things that that are needed to do a 3D printing of an actuator, in a remote location. They can cut delivery times down on aircraft parts from weeks and months down to hours and days. So that's that's actually changing the entire model of manufacturing supply chain. And then we're going to do a deep dive into digital identity also, and the devices that are actually accessing secure networks. We have a blockchain cybersecurity expert, Stephen Sprague from Rivets, who you might remember from the Super Bitcoin conference. Stephen presented there, and they did an early ICO for their token. But Stephen is quite the expert on establishing a very high level security measures using a cryptographic private key that's embedded into devices. I mean, if you think about all the passwords we have now and all the user IDs that you have to maintain, that's I mean, it's so cumbersome, and it's such a security issue, with all the hacks that go on. That having the concept of a private key and a public key, that we are familiar with, obviously, with Bitcoin and with cryptocurrencies, having that as the method of identifying, devices and their security accessing, private networks, sensitive networks, is where this industry is going. And,
right.
So identity is a key issue. How do you identify who that individual is and know that, in fact, that peer-to-peer transfer that you're taking place, even, whether it's an industrial setting, a private blockchain, or a public blockchain, whatever, that's where all this is going right now. So it's, we're not trying, we have Ted Tanner, who's the chairman of, the global CTO of IBM Watson. Ted is a local boy. He's done extremely well in this space with startups, and he came out of a startup that a lot of folks may be familiar with, Polkadot, which is a legacy hospital disruptor. They created, when they exited that program in December of 2018, they were putting out, I think, something like 1,500 APIs daily to hospital systems to streamline insurance payments to doctors, registered patients, that type of thing. So he was able to complete. He had a non-compete, and has joined our team. And
this has been a CryptoPodcaster.com production.
In this initial conference with a keynote speech as well. So, we've got a lot to talk about in South Carolina, and we're really trying to, use this as a way to, for leadership to understand that there's really something going on here. And this industry is something to woo and not, and to understand, and do so real quickly, because the competition's out there.
Right. Yeah. So you got 6 days, 3 hours, 7 minutes from right now to the conference. So everybody you need to go to, if you're interested in this at all, especially if you're in South Carolina, I mean, you can drive to this. Check out scblockchainweek.com, and I'll have that in the show notes, but it's scblockchainweek.com. That's where you can go and buy your tickets, book your hotel room. Like I said, especially if you're in Charleston. Oh my gosh, you need to go buy
That's
them.
right. And
But
if you use the code CHS Tech, TECH,
okay.
you'll get a 35% discount off the retail ticket price. So,
And this also, from what you just said, will include follow-up conference in October.
right, exactly.
So you're getting two for one with a 35.
That's right.
With a 35% discount.
That's correct.
So check that out. I'm telling you guys, it may be worth it, especially, Dennis, I hope you do better at getting people from Charleston than I do from Texas. I have more people. I almost have more people from Europe than I do from Dallas-Fort Worth. And that's kind of crazy. I had 4 tickets I sold to the Netherlands, last week. I have more people from Europe coming to my conference than people who can drive there. So I know I got a good conference.
Yeah.
If I have people coming that far to be with these people, but it's kind of like, it just makes no sense sometimes.
Right. Well, that's the testimony to the nature of the industry right now. I think, there's a lot of education to do on the local level. People just don't realize, what's coming down the pipeline. In Columbia, I feel like, the lifeguard standing on top of the lifeguard stand, yelling, there's a tidal wave coming, get off the beach, and
what's good? It's kind of like in Bitcoin, Dennis. I tell you, here's what's going to happen. I promise you. All these people I was telling in March of last year that they should be buying Bitcoin at 3,200. Friends of mine. I really don't go around telling strangers what to do, but they're friends of mine. I'm going, you might want to get some of this in case I'm right.
Right.
Now, a year later, it's $9,000, and they're starting to say, how much was that Bitcoin when you told me about it a year ago? But that's all they're really saying. I'm telling you, when this thing doubles again, and it hits 20,000,
stays there,
they're all going to start buying. They wouldn't buy at 3,200,
right?
But they'll start buying at 20,000 because all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I need to get some of this, So where they could have had 5 times as much if they'd listened to me. So that's the way it works. Hey, before we go.
I tell everybody, just get a little bit. It's better to have some than none.
That's what I tell people, just in case I'm right. If I'm wrong, you're not going to lose that much.
You'll spend more on a dinner sometimes than
just get the Cash App and buy a little bit every week.
Yeah, I mean, don't eat lunch one day and use Cash App and buy a little Bitcoin.
Yeah. You don't have to jump all in. Like I said, you don't have to jump. You don't have to go
Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to take 10% of your portfolio. Yeah. I'm just saying get a little in case I'm right. This could turn out to be something. Hey, before we go, I want to know something. I want to know about Charleston Jazz. You're real involved with that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that real quick. When you were here for Super Conference, you even gave me a T-shirt, Charleston Jazz Festival, which I still have.
Sure.
Let's talk about that real quick, because I love jazz, and I love jazz, so I want to hear some about that.
Yeah. Well, I actually started tweeting under that handle, Charleston Jazz, the Charleston Jazz Jam, and so that's kind of how I worked into the crypto area. But Charleston is synonymous with jazz. I mean, and a lot of people didn't know that, and I always suspected something was going on here, but couldn't quite put my handle on it. And then probably about 10, 12 years ago, some of the oral history started being recorded. The College of Charleston created a group called the Charleston Jazz Initiative to begin recording oral histories of the jazz sidemen that came out of Charleston. And some of them were quite, very well known. And as an example, Freddie Green, who was Basie's right-hand man, Mr. Rhythm, was from Charleston. Cat Anderson, who was Duke Ellington's high note trumpet player, was from Charleston. Jabbo Smith, who was a contemporary of Louis Armstrong's and followed Louis Armstrong up the Mississippi to St. Louis and to New York, was from Charleston. So
I didn't know all this history.
Yeah, there's a very rich history here, and it actually goes back to an orphanage, at the turn of the 20th century, that was that took in truants basically, and took in children and taught them music. The Jenkins Orphanage, which was founded by the Reverend Jenkins, was basically a haven, for children of that time, and they felt as though by teaching them music, they had a way out, but it also was a matter of health, which because of the spread of tuberculosis at that time, figuring healthy lungs, wind instruments would create a better individual. So, but you can imagine that as these kids grew up, and they performed, in Teddy Roosevelt's inaugural parade. They entertained heads of state in Europe. There were 5 bands that traveled around the country, and they're also credited with the antics of the leaders being the development of the dance to Charleston. So, there's a very rich history of jazz in South Carolina and Charleston specifically. It goes to the very roots of the genre. It was known because of the Jenkins's education process that if you left Charleston and went to New Orleans, you knew your stuff, which meant you could read music. Okay, and because a lot of those folks were played by ear, so this
Right.
was a big deal. The mayor's uncle, great uncle, Fudd Livingston, was a Citadel graduate. He went to he went to New York and became the arranger for the big bands, that took the popular tunes of the day, and transcribed them into multiple parts that the white orchestras would play, actually. So introducing that whole genre into a whole new audience in those days. So Fudd Livingston is a patron son of Charleston, and he has a big mark in jazz. So, there's just so many things that kind of dovetail off of this. When I got into it years ago, I saw a poster for a Count Basie's orchestra play at a little place called Porgy and Bess Supper Club on James Island.
Yeah, I've been to Porgy's and Bess's. We went in there one Friday night when we were in high school. Yeah.
They were advertising Count Basie's orchestra coming into Porgy and Bess, to play a gig. It was November 28th, 1978, something like that. I got the poster. I took it down, actually. I've still got it, and they rolled into town about 11 o'clock on a Greyhound bus and unloaded. We danced in the Porgy and Bess till about 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, and we just had a ball.
That's great.
But they had but the reason for that was that the local population knew when the bands were coming through, so they would book them, and this went on through the 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s for that matter. So they went on and brought the orchestras into Charleston even during segregation, and they would house the musicians in their homes because of segregation. I mean, pure and simple. It was what it was at that time. So that's how Charleston remained sort of an underground level of jazz in the history of the genre. And fortunately, it's been told now. The history is there. We know what it is, and we've become a birthplace really for the reemergence of jazz as a genre. I mean, you can't. It's kind of like going to New Orleans. I mean, you can't go too many places downtown Charleston now where you won't hear the strains of some jazz coming out from somewhere.
Right.
And we've got a great jazz orchestra here. We've got the Charleston Jazz Festival is in its.
Well, let me give you a hint. Here's something I think you should do, Dennis.
Yeah.
When you do your event in October, your second follow-up, on your Friday night networking thing, you should bring a jazz band in there.
Well,
and have that
100%. Yeah. And we were talking about actually doing that this weekend, but just because of all the other preparation,
Right.
that may still happen.
Well, but by the second one, you'll have a lot of this down. From putting one together. Once you put one together, the second one's a little easier, and the third's a little easier. So next one, let's expand this and have a jazz band Friday night. Hey, we're going to have to get out of here. This is going a little overboard. I do want to know, where can people follow you at, Dennis?
Yeah, we're at initiative_SC for our Twitter account.
Okay.
Charleston Jazz Jam, Dennis Fassuliotis on Twitter as well as a personal account. Of course, we're on LinkedIn and Facebook, the Palmetto chain, or my name personally. And then we also have our own unique ecosystem at palmettochain.com,
Okay.
And you can join us, through our Mighty Network site there. And obviously, some things go up there that don't necessarily go anywhere else. So we'd love to have. I mean, you don't have to just have an interest in South Carolina.
No, I'm a member of this, and I get your messages, and this has some good information. Sometimes I even post on here. So this is definitely palmettochain.com is worth looking at. Well, Dennis, I want to let you know I appreciate you coming on the show, and it's official. You're now a crypto cousin. So
Great.
you're a crypto cousin. I want to thank you for coming on the show, and maybe we'll have you back before the second one, but more than a week before.
Great.
Maybe like a
Love
month or
to do
two
it,
before
Gary.
to help push it. I appreciate you taking the time, and everybody, I appreciate you listening. Have a good one, everyone. This has been a CryptoPodcaster.com production.